Do you ever feel overwhelmed with what can seem like a growing sense of polarization and social unrest? And do you ever think to yourself, there's got to be a better way? I do often. And as I try and make sense of things in my life, I like to create structures and frameworks as a means of sense making. And I created one about the stages of maturity, or what I call the evolution of a warrior, that I'd like to break down in this video here. Within the framework, there's 4 levels that I mentioned, and the first is ignorance. The second is fighting against. The third is fighting for. And the fourth is standing in. I want to unpack all of these, and let's just jump right into it. Ignorance means a lack of knowledge. So in this case, at the social level, I consider it to be a lack of knowledge, a lack of awareness around social injustices in the world. It's a very childlike way of perceiving the world, where everything is viewed with rose-tinted glasses and everything is perfect and there's no problems, there's no injustices. In this stage, everything is perfect and it's easy to move forward and turn a blind eye to any unnecessary suffering, just keeping moving forward without challenging the status quo or considering economic or any kind of social injustice, and just think everything is perfect. At this level, somebody might accept the narrative that wealth inequality is simply a product of how much effort somebody puts in, or there is no corporate corruption happening, or there is no financial incentive that has made its way into government policies and decision making. At this stage, we are missing the bigger picture and blocking ourselves from an opportunity for deeper personal growth and societal evolution. Moving beyond this first stage of ignorance is essential for fostering awareness and initiating change. Moving into the second stage, which I call fighting against, this is where we start to have the veil of ignorance peeled back. And when we start to see injustices, there becomes a growing sense of rage, of all of the wrongs, of all of the things that we hadn't previously seen. And in this stage, we want to tear down anything that we think might be causing these injustices. For example, if I start to recognize that the economic landscape is not fairly set out, the game is rigged, and it's not simply effort that can move me up the ladder, I'm going to be really frustrated and angry at the systems and the structures that are perpetuating these injustices. And so I'm going to want to tear down that system, tear down that structure. So if you've ever heard this in society, it might be tear down capitalism. We just need to throw everything out. Often you'll see people at this level participating in boycotts and rallies and going onto social media to vent their frustrations about the injustices of the system. And while there is importance in bringing awareness, if we want to tear down something like capitalism or patriarchy and don't have clarity on what we want to replace that with, then it becomes a really destructive force that we're actually putting into our society, because there's no clarity of what we're moving towards. We're just aware of what we want to tear down. Additionally, this aggressive stance can also cause alienation from us with people who might disagree with our stance. And I think, from my perspective, a lot of the cultural collective, the cultural consciousness, seems to be at this level 2 stage. I want to tear down the thing that I recognize isn't working, or the thing that I think is causing the injustices in the world. But I haven't spent that much time thinking about what should that look like alternatively. What is that more beautiful future that I envision that is possible for us to step into? The shift from stage 2 to stage 3, which I call fighting for, starts to take on a more constructive approach. We move from wanting to tear something down to pushing for an idea or a concept or a new paradigm that we want to build up. This is where we start advocating and fighting for what we believe is best, a new system, a new ideology. This third stage is much more constructive than the first two, and it can look like volunteering and being engaged and taking to social media to promote the vision that we do have and the ideas that we want to see implemented within society. And I think we saw a lot of that over the past few years with the pandemic, that people had different ideas of how we should move things forward. And a lot of people were very loud in advocating how we could address a health crisis or how we could move forward with different political issues that are going on. While this third stage of fighting for can be much more constructive, when it's rooted in ideology, it can be pushing certain individuals in one direction and others in a different direction. And what happens as people get loud and advocating in these spaces, they're inevitably going to butt heads, and they're going to find an inability to be able to listen to and respect somebody's perspective that is quite different from the ideology that they hold. Instead of working towards a vision with society at large and move the collective forward, we get trapped in tribal ideology, and it perpetuates division and it can stall progress. I don't think we'll be able to move forward effectively as a whole without being able to listen wholeheartedly and honestly and respectfully to people that we disagree with. This is where I think defining this fourth stage of maturity, or the fourth evolution of a warrior, is standing in. For me, that means standing in a shared field of values, which requires me to get clear on the values that I hold. What are the values and the metrics that are important to me, that guide my life? Perhaps that's fairness or equality or honesty or respect. There are so many different things here to actually lean into and clarify. But at this stage, this is the mature evolution that's required. Is I need to develop a deeper self-awareness of what I stand for at that level. The reason why this is so critical is because it roots everything we say and do in a sense of shared values and a sense of shared humanity rather than ideology, which is often divisive. To offer a practical example of how that looks, I often think of Martin Luther King, who helped champion the civil rights movement. And there were hundreds of thousands of people that showed up the day he gave his I Have a Dream speech. And personally, I don't think they showed up for Martin Luther King. I think they showed up because they shared a similar dream. And in that speech, he said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." In that sentence, he makes his values explicit, that he wants to create a society that's rooted in respect and holds people to the actions that they take, not the color of their skin or their gender assigned at birth. It's more about how we show up, and we hold one another to standards, but based on the actions that we take. Gandhi's another example of this, who helped initiate a liberation movement in India. And while it is a cliche, it's true. Be the change essentially could mean live your values. He recognized how important it was to get clear on what he stood for and embody that impeccably within how he showed up in the world. The thing is, often we actually hold very similar values to people we disagree with. The point of contention is how we think those values should be met. So if I can at least stand in a shared field of values and recognize that somebody I disagree with also believes in fairness, also believes in equality, also believes that people should have access to healthcare, then we can start from there and have a conversation and acknowledge that while I might not think their strategy to have that value met is effective, I can respect them as a human and celebrate and honor the values that they hold. This is going to be critical for us to co-create a shared vision for humanity that we can hold and that we can take actionable, practical steps in to work together, and so that we can heal the divide that is causing a rift within our society. Ultimately, as we live and embody this fourth stage of maturity, this fourth evolution of the warrior, we will realize at the deepest level of our being, there is more that connects us than there is that divides us. I'd like to invite you to reflect on where you think you are in your evolution of a warrior, and recognize that that's also going to look different in different aspects of our life. But take time to think about, how am I showing up? Am I ignorant on particular topics? Am I trying to tear down something? Am I rooted in ideology but moving something constructively forward? Or am I crystal clear on the values that I stand for and the vision of the world that I'm trying to help co-create that is rooted in those values? And if you're interested in receiving support to help clarify your values, I've created a core values inventory that you can access for free in the description below. Hopefully this framework resonates with you and helps offer a bit more clarity on the journey of a warrior, or the evolution of our stages of maturity. And I'm curious to get your perspective. Where do you think we are at collectively within that evolution of a warrior, within the stages of maturity? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks again for listening. I'm Stu Murray signing off, and we'll see you next week.